The night he told me he was leaving, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was the only sound that could stop the silence from swallowing me whole. Evan stood in the doorway, suitcase by his feet, his eyes shimmering like rain that refused to fall. "I can't do this anymore, Noah," he said softly, as if his voice might crack if it grew louder. "Do what? Love me? Pretend not to? Or keep pretending that the way we held each other after every fight meant nothing?" The air between us was thick with everything we didn't say. I could smell his cologne, fresh pine and soap, fading already, like the last trace of him was slipping through my fingers. When he turned to leave, I wanted to call his name, to pull him back, to ask him why love had to hurt like this. But all I did was stand there, watching him disappear into the night, until the sound of the door closing felt like a heartbeat stopping. That's the thing about us, we never knew how to end a fight. We just knew how to love louder than we apologized. It all started 2 years ago, on the rooftop of our college dorm. Evan was the kind of person everyone noticed, the type who laughed too easily, who carried warmth in his smile and chaos in his heart. I was quieter, the guy who stayed on the edges of crowds, watching the world instead of stepping into it. That night, I found him sitting on the edge of the roof, feet dangling over the city lights, cigarette between his lips. He looked like trouble, the kind that made you curious enough to ruin your own peace. "Ever think about jumping?" he asked when he saw me. I blinked. "Not until you said that." He laughed, the sound echoing in the cold air. "Don't worry, I'm not suicidal. I just like to think about what keeps people from falling." I didn't know it then, but that was the moment he started to pull me in, the way he looked at life like it was both a battlefield and a poem. By winter, we were inseparable. Late-night coffee runs, movie marathons on my narrow dorm bed, whispered confessions at 3 a.m. when sleep wouldn't come. I never called it love, not out loud, but it lived in the way I memorized the lines on his face, the way my hands knew the shape of him in the dark. Evan once told me, "If anyone ever asks, we're just friends. Okay?" He said it with a laugh, but I saw the fear behind it. I nodded because I understood. We lived in a world that wasn't ready for the way we fit. Still, when he reached for my hand under the table, I didn't pull away. Love didn't break us. Silence did. It started small, missed calls, shorter texts, the way he'd turn away when I tried to meet his eyes. Then came the fights, always about something stupid, a late reply, a rumor, the way he'd flinch when someone joked about us being too close. "You think I don't care," he'd shout. "You think I'm ashamed, but you don't understand what it's like for me." And I'd yell back, "Then make me understand." We'd scream until our throats ached, until our words turned into tears. Then we'd collapse into each other's arms, desperate, trembling, kissing like we were trying to erase the damage. Those moments, the silence after the chaos, were the only times I felt safe. The world outside could hate us, but in the quiet between our fights, there was something sacred. He'd hold me like I was the only truth left, and for a few minutes I believed it. The night before he left, we fought again. It started because I told him I was tired of hiding, tired of being the secret he carried like a burden. "You don't get it, Noah," he said, pacing. "My dad would disown me. My coach would kick me off the team. I'd lose everything. And what about me?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Do I not count as something worth losing for?" He froze, his chest rising and falling like he couldn't breathe. "Don't make me choose." But he already had. He walked out an hour later, suitcase in hand, silence heavier than any goodbye. That was 4 months ago. For months of unanswered texts. For months of learning how to sleep without his arm draped across me. For months of pretending I didn't still listen for his laugh in every crowd. Until tonight. I saw him again by accident or maybe fate, at a late-night diner, same as the one where we used to split pancakes after midnight. He was sitting in our old booth, same gray hoodie, same tired eyes. When he saw me, he froze, then smiled that half smile that once ruined me. "Noah," he said, my name like a ghost he'd been afraid to speak. "Hey," I managed. My voice shook. "Didn't think I'd see you here." He looked down, fidgeting with his coffee mug. "I've been around." I wanted to ask where, if he missed me, but I stayed silent. The air between us was different now, heavier, but softer, like maybe the wounds had turned into scars. After a long pause, he whispered, "You still mad at me?" I sighed. "I don't know. Maybe I'm just mad at how easy it is to still love you." That made him look up. His eyes glistened under the neon lights. I never stopped. And just like that, all the noise in my head went quiet. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. He told me he'd dropped out of the team, that he'd moved out of his father's house, that he was working at a bookstore now. I had to figure out who I was without everyone else telling me, he said. And the truth is, I missed you every damn day. The confession hit me like a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for months. I didn't say I forgave him. I didn't need to. I just reached across the table, took his hand, and felt that familiar spark between our fingers. We didn't have to name it anymore. Because love doesn't disappear. It just waits in the silence until you're brave enough to hear it again. He walked me home that night. The city was asleep, the streets washed in moonlight. When we reached my door, he hesitated. "Do you think we could start over?" I looked at him, really looked at him. The same boy who once made me believe in falling, standing here trying to rise. "Maybe," I said softly, but this time no silence, no pretending. "We speak the love we were afraid to before." He smiled, tears in his eyes. "Deal." And when he kissed me, slow, certain, trembling, I finally understood. Some loves aren't meant to be perfect. They're meant to be honest. The morning after we found each other again, the city looked different, softer somehow. The kind of morning that feels like it's holding its breath, afraid to break the spell of what just happened. Evan was still asleep beside me, his head buried in my pillow, his hand resting over mine as if afraid I'd vanish if he let go. I studied his face, the small scar above his eyebrow, the faint trace of stubble, the slow rise and fall of his chest. I used to know this by heart, every inch, every freckle, every rhythm of him. And yet, seeing him again felt like discovering a language I'd once been fluent in but had forgotten how to speak. Outside, the sun painted the curtains gold. Inside, time stood still. He stirred, his eyes fluttering open, and for a moment, I saw the boy I fell in love with, unguarded, soft, and completely mine. "Morning," he whispered, his voice rough with sleep. "Morning," I echoed. He smiled faintly. "I can't believe I'm here, with you." I wanted to say, "Me neither," but I just nodded, because there was something fragile about the moment, like if I spoke too loud, it would shatter. He sat up, stretching, his back to me. "Noah," he said quietly, "do you regret last night?" The question hit harder than I expected. I reached out, brushing my fingers down his spine. "Do you?" He turned, his eyes searching mine. "No, but I'm scared." "Of what?" He hesitated. "Of ruining it again. Of not being enough for you this time." My throat tightened. "You were always enough, Evan. That was never the problem." He looked down. "Then what was?" "The silence," I said simply. "All the things we didn't say." He nodded slowly, eyes glistening. "Then I guess we start by not being quiet anymore. We tried. God, we tried." Days turned into weeks. Evan moved into my apartment. Slowly at first, one drawer, one toothbrush, one sweatshirt at a time. We cooked breakfast together, laughed at dumb movies, argued over which playlist to put on during dinner. Felt real, felt right. But love, I learned, doesn't erase fear. It just learns to live beside it. There were nights when he'd still flinch if I touched his hand in public. When we passed a group of guys laughing too loud, he'd tense up, eyes darting away. And there were moments I'd feel that old ache creeping back, that fear that I was loving someone who still couldn't love himself out loud. One evening, we went to a friend's housewarming. Everyone there knew about us, or at least I thought they did. Halfway through the night, one of the guests, a girl from Evan's old class, smiled at him and said, "You still single, Evans?" He laughed nervously. "Yeah, something like that." I froze. My drink burned in my throat. She leaned closer, teasing, "You? Single? I don't believe that for a second." Evan smiled, that polite, practiced smile I used to love. "Guess I'm hard to keep." I left the room before anyone could see the look on my face. He found me on the balcony 10 minutes later. "Noah, wait." I cut him off. "Don't. Not now. It's not what you think." "Really?" Because it sounded a lot like what it always was, you pretending I don't exist. He stepped closer, desperation in his voice. "I didn't mean it like that. I just didn't want to make it weird." I snapped. "Didn't want to be that guy. The one who has to explain why you're with another man." He winced, guilt clouding his eyes. "Noah, please. I'm trying. You know I'm trying." "Then try harder," I whispered. The silence that followed was brutal. We went home in separate Ubers that night. The next morning, he was gone. Again. No note, no message. Just his toothbrush missing and the faint smell of his cologne lingering in the air like a memory I couldn't wash out. For 2 days, I didn't hear from him. I tried to convince myself I didn't care, that this was proof we'd never really fix what was broken. But when the third night came and my phone finally buzzed with his name, my heart betrayed me. "Evan, I'm at the park near our old dorm. Can we talk?" I almost didn't go. Almost. But love doesn't listen to logic. When I got there, he was sitting on the same bench where he once confessed he liked the way I laughed. His hoodie was soaked from the drizzle, his eyes red. "Noah," he said, standing as I approached. I crossed my arms. "You ran again." "I know." His voice broke. "And I'm sorry." "Do you even know what you're sorry for?" He nodded. "For not being brave. For still caring too much about what people think. For hurting you because I was scared of myself." I looked away, the lump in my throat heavy. "You can't keep running from who you are, Evan. I can't keep chasing you." He stepped closer. "I'm not asking you to chase me. I'm asking you to walk beside me, while I learn how to stop running." His words hung in the air, trembling with honesty. Then he added, barely above a whisper, "I told my dad." My breath caught. "What?" I told him. "About you. About us." I stared at him, disbelief warring with hope. "And?" He swallowed hard. "He didn't take it well. Said some things I'll never forget. But at least now he knows. And for the first time, I feel free." Tears blurred my vision. Evan reached for my hand. "I want to stop hiding, Noah. I'm done being afraid of loving you." I broke. Right there, in the rain, under the same sky that had watched us fall apart before. I pulled him into my arms, and we just stood there, holding on like the world might fall apart if we let go. He whispered against my shoulder, "Can we try again?" I nodded into his chest. "As long as you mean it." "I do," he said, voice trembling but sure. "This time I do." The weeks that followed weren't perfect, but they were real. Evan found a therapist, started attending LGBTQ support meetings. I went with him sometimes, sitting quietly in the back, watching him learn how to breathe without shame. He began posting small things online, a quote about love, a song lyric that hinted at us. And when someone commented, "You seeing someone?" he finally replied, "Yeah, someone who makes me feel like I can be myself." That small act felt bigger than any grand gesture. We celebrated by dancing in the living room, barefoot, half drunk, music too loud, hearts too full. For the first time, it didn't feel like we were fighting to prove our love, we were living it. But love still tests you. Always. One night, months later, I came home late from work and found Evan sitting on the couch, his face pale, a letter in his hand. "What's wrong?" I asked. He handed it to me silently. It was from his father. "Evan, I can't pretend to understand your choices, but I can't lose my son either. Come home, let's talk." My chest tightened. "That's good, right?" He nodded slowly. "Maybe, but I'm scared. What if it's just another way to change me?" "Then you go," I said gently. "You face him, and if he can't love you as you are, you walk away knowing you tried." He stared at me for a long moment, then whispered, "Will you come with me?" I smiled faintly. "Always." We drove 3 hours to his hometown the next morning. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that carried years of unspoken tension. His father met us at the door, tall, stern, older now, but with eyes that softened when he saw his son. "Evan," he said quietly. "Dad." They stood there for what felt like forever, both unsure of how to bridge the space between them. Finally, his father sighed. "You look different." Evan swallowed. "I am." He nodded slowly, glancing at me. "And this must be Noah." I froze, unsure what to say. "Yes, sir." His father studied me for a long moment, then said, "You're the one he couldn't stop talking about when he left." Evan's eyes widened. "You knew." "I knew something," his father said softly. "I just wasn't ready to face it." Silence again. Heavy, awkward, but not hostile. Then, almost imperceptibly, his father said, "I don't understand everything, Evan, but I'm trying. And if he makes you happy, then I want to try harder." Evan's face crumpled. He crossed the room in 2 steps and hugged his father. Tightly, desperately, like a boy who'd been holding his breath for years. And his father hugged him back. I turned away, tears stinging my eyes. That night, as we drove home under a sky full of stars, Evan reached across the console, lacing his fingers with mine. "I think," he said quietly, "for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid anymore." I looked at him, smiling through tears. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." He squeezed my hand. "Neither am I." The road stretched ahead of us, endless and open, the kind of road that didn't lead back to the past, but forward, toward something that finally felt like peace. We rolled the windows down, let the wind fill the car, and for once, neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to say. Because in the silence between our fights, in the space where fear once lived, we had finally found it. The love we were no longer afraid to speak.